All right, also joined in by Sunil Pandita, who's the Chief Division Officer of NEMS-Tech. Many thanks to you for joining in as well. Sunil, if I could bring you in on the focus areas that are being discussed right now. Jitendra Singh was also talking about biopharma. There's focus on critical minerals and semiconductors. How, in terms of securing supply chains at the moment, how much do you think that this budget speaks to those concerns?
Great question. I think this budget is really about building infrastructure and thereby securing the supply chain. There's roughly 12.5 crores capex, which gives you 50 years state loans, and that builds project certainty. In my view, it's less populous, but really more growth oriented. Second thing about supply chain, which it really brings to future, is the investment in technology, because the technological backbone that India is building over the years helps not only the infrastructure, but all other sectors at the same time as well. Roads, metros, airports, hospitals, water, infra. This is national scale construction and not just announcements, which is why it's very exciting for India as a nation to really send it to the world a clear message that we are serious about the growth of our country for the years to come.
That's why. Okay. Quickly finish your point.
Last thing I was going to say is that there is also humongous, focus on both green as well as manufacturing. So we see India progressing not just towards a technology and a services powerhouse, but also given the geopolitical situation, India is also betting big on defense and infra and manufacturing. So that provides us a wide scale of economy vectors to drive growth in the country.
So, Sushil Tiwari, if I could bring you in on that point about generating jobs, because there's a lot of discontent within the middle income taxpayer, also the youth which is currently struggling for jobs. Do you think that with this focus on manufacturing as far as frontier sectors or strategic sectors are concerned, as the Union Finance Minister referred to, that's going to be enough in terms of generating jobs? There's also a renewed focus on MSMEs.
Yeah, so if you look at one of the central themes of what FM has presented is what she called as E2E, which is education to employment, right?
Right.
That is going to be one of the core, and the central, theme and the action of the government, as far as I understand, because the whole approach is service-led growth, which is based on technology, right? And if you look at the technology sector, there are 2-3 key elements that the industry sector is looking forward for intervention on, right? One is the continued, focus on AI and AI enablement. Second is one of the largest revenue generator, that is global capability centers, that GCCs. So there have been some of the concerns on the GCC side. So the industry has been looking for some intervention there. And last but not the least, the employability part that you talked about, right? So very clearly through this E2E, I think government is going to make that intervention in terms of going to create something called, resources which can be deployable finally, right, into the industry, and they can be trained probably in the institutions itself. And so that they are deliverable from day one. Yeah.
All right, Kailash Adhikari, on the focus as far as capital expenditure is concerned, infrastructural development, that's the big talking point today. I'd like your thoughts on how this is now going to ensure that our economy remains insulated from external disturbances.
Yeah, Akanksha, this budget has focused completely on certain aspects and very positively shied away from poll populism. That is a very big takeaway, I feel. Now, coming back to the point that public expenditure is definitely raised to 12.2 lakh crore from last year, from 11.2 lakh crore. So that's a good sign. When you boost up public capital expenditure, the private expenditure also, follows, and that actually levers the economic growth. And the major focus of this public capital expenditure is made on infrastructure, freight corridors, as we have seen, inland waterways, high-speed rail, and development of tier 2 and tier 3 cities as the economic hubs. Apart from that, services sector, skilling, employment generation, which actually act as a peripheral, to be very honest, Akanksha, they are also the key themes, covering your basics of healthcare, tourism, education, creative industries, and sport. But what is most eye-catching is the push for artificial intelligence and data centers, and the kind of tax holidays till 2047 that has been announced for data centers. So overall, yes, with new schemes and the renewed focus towards MSMEs. Like this government since 2014 has been very clear on the fact that a major contributor to India's economic growth and a major sector for Viksit Bharat are our MSMEs. And they have been consistently positioned as growth engines with the capital 10,000 crore of capital for the SMEs, as well as the other schemes that have been pushing SMEs as well as MSMEs.
So,
The fresh equity support, easier access to
that the
credit.
Modi government has actually taken those steps to protect the MSMEs, whether it is, say, from the disturbances created by the US tariffs. But, just protecting them is not going to suffice. You're also looking towards propping them further, maybe also paving a way where we take our MSMEs over to, say, international shores like the US economy itself. But going to request you to continue staying with me. We have some breaking inputs, in fact, coming in as we decode the impact of this budget 2026 on the middle class. Remember, that's a key area of focus as well. The finance minister has already announced that the income tax rules have been simplified. The automated nil deduction certification has also been brought in. There's going to be no tax on motor accident claims, which seems to be a bit of a respite to the taxpayer. Rationalization of tax cut at source is important as well. You're looking at a revised ITR deadline, which has been extended. There's an ease of selling homes for NRIs as well. Foreign asset disclosure scheme has also been brought in. At the same time, you have the tax penalty and prosecutions, which have been rationalized. There's duty for personal goods, which has been slashed to just half. Trade tax hike has been reduced as far as the guests are concerned. I want to quickly go back to Sunil on that note. Sunil, while you decode this and weigh in on how this is now going to simplify our ITR filings, there were also a whole set of disappointments which were being discussed today by the middle income taxpayer. Many of them were also expecting that there will be an ease in terms of filing for married couples. Many of the elderly ones were looking towards easing tax filing when it comes to retirements and, the tax that's levied on them when they have to withdraw their savings. I'd like to hear from you. Any set of disappointments now?
Of course, the budget that's right now being talked about is not populist in manner, right? There are no major tax cuts, if you may, take home. So this is more investment that will drive growth and then middle class prosperity, because you cannot tax cut your way to growth. Also, I feel there is one disappointment where we are becoming a $5 trillion economy. And what does it mean right now for me? So instead of discussing just the 2026 growth prospect,
Sure.
this is a mandate for India to become hopefully the third biggest economy in the world. It's already on a good path to become the fourth biggest economy in the world. So from middle income relief, from wages, not just slabs. So there is a little bit of disappointment, but net, I would say this is the mandate for growth, not necessarily for populism.
Okay, I can see I'm also joined in by Sandeep Jhunjhunwala, who's a partner at Nangia Global. In fact, Sandeep is seated right next to me in the studio. Welcome to our studio, Sandeep. Taking that point forward that's just been made by Sunil, he's talking about how this is a budget which is talking about India's growth outlook, keeping 2047 the roadmap ahead. What's your take when it comes to, even if we have to say, compromise with the populism factor over here, will this budget be able to ensure the kind of long-term vision that Prime Minister Modi also spoke about in his speech?
Yeah, I agree to that point. See, we have to keep in mind the fact that this is a budget which has come mid-term somewhere, and therefore there was no expectation that something populist would either come for the middle class. But looking from a long-term perspective, let's look at the two sunrise sectors that the government has focused on, one being the GCC and the second being the data centers. Data centers tax holiday till 2047, I think, has been one of the asks from the industry, because data centers are picking up in India. Of course, it came in a different way because the ask was largely for the foreign companies to say that there is no permanent establishment exposure for them if they are catering to the Indian customers. The government here has probably tried to bring in a tax holiday regime saying that a foreign player can still continue to service the Indian customers, but they need to have an Indian reseller entity in between, which in some sense means that they can service the Indian customers through their Indian arm and obviously, then enjoy the tax holiday benefit. The other aspect is on GCC, which is definitely one of the sunrise sectors, and hints that the government is probably looking at a longer term vision in this respect. They have consolidated software development, KPO, BPO, all of it under the umbrella of IT services, given a 15.5% safe harbor rate, which is applicable for 5 years, and they have said that we are going to legislate this through a simple automated process. I think this is going to be a big kind of reform for the IT industry.
Ashish,